What's up? What's up? You know what it is. It's your boy Blue East coming at you with episode 6 for the Between the Buns podcast. I am joined by my co-host, my friend, my brother, my guy, Carlton. How you doing, my man?
Man, another day in paradise, man. Feeling lovely, feeling blessed. Happy to share another episode with you, my man. How you doing out there?
I'm doing really well, man. Halloween was good. The kids definitely got their haul of Halloween candy. And it's funny, we were talking about some of these candies, man. And honor of you, we got one of these gems dropped in the bag, the white Reese's, Carlton's favorite.
Goated, man. Goated.
And then this is crazy how we talked about this before doing Halloween. And when I went back to look at the video, I stumbled upon the Twix Ghoulish Greens.
Oh man,
we got one of those.
You tried it yet?
Nah, not yet. I was thinking about popping this bad boy open maybe in the next episode or something, but I just wanted to show it off real quick for everybody because
from what I've heard, there's not much of a flavor profile difference. It's just the added food coloring, which
yeah. I remember you saying that. But before we get into it, y'all, thank you again for chiming in. Please make sure you follow us, subscribe to us on Instagram, Spotify. We're on Podchasers now. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're working on getting on Amazon Podcasts, working on getting on iHeart. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you're notified of all the episodes. Last night, I went out to the International Drive area, which is a tourist haven away from Disney, not far from Universal. And there's an area called Port Orlando, which is where you want to go for kids, families, date night, adult weekend. And being that Orlando is a number 2 in hospitality in the country after Las Vegas, respectively, we have a lot of concepts for restaurants. We have different ones based off of cuisine, ethnicity, but when it comes to iDrive, we're starting to get into a lot of fusions. We're about to get into the Mexican Asian fusion, soul food neo fusion. And I went to a restaurant that's supposed to be based off of South Florida called Palm Beach Cafe. And this had a good blend of a South Beach vibe, very dim lit, exotic looking drinks with great presentation. The menu, in my opinion, was pretty sporadic though. And what I mean by that is you have sushi, then you have pasta, you have pizza, then you have steak, then you have whole snappers fried with lettuce wraps. Like presentation's everything. The food wants to be just as good. You got a DJ in the back. Sometimes they're even going to host DJs. Right above that is a lounge. So my question to y'all is, when you go out and you go to restaurants, what are you looking for on certain vibes? Because in my opinion, I feel like this had a good mesh of a lot of things, but at the same time, it was a little overwhelming, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think in some cases, man, you definitely can have analysis paralysis where it's just overstimulated, too many choices, too many options. I think personally for me, man, I actually can appreciate and respect that. I feel like we live in a world where, abundance is, what we thrive on. You know what I mean? We thrive on having options. We thrive on instant gratification. So, I think one of the most difficult questions for my family, every night is what's for dinner, and I have a household of 4, I got small children. Obviously, this being a late night spot for you, you're not going to have kids, but, some people are picky. So you're not always going to see eye to eye on the same option for dinner. So to be able to have that variety, man, I'm all for it.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. Something we were talking about was it's definitely a good date night type of atmosphere. It's definitely a good hangout. We don't know if there's a brunch there, but we can see that being a great location for a brunch if they had one. Let me take the moment to shout out the server last night, Dash, for being very transparent with the menu, for being very honest with the menu, because when you go to most places and you ask a server, what are your favorite items? And the generic thing to say is everything's my favorite. But She
Or they picked the most expensive option.
that part. But she went out of the way to say the food that she's tried is good, but she made sure to highlight one or two items from each category to say what she believed was her favorite ones. So I gave her props on that. So Dash, you're doing a good job.
So what'd you try? What'd you go with?
So we picked two types of sushi rolls. One was the I4. Another one was, I think, the firecracker. We got for drinks, I got an old fashioned. They had an espresso martini flight. And one of the other visitors that came with us got a espresso martini, but it had like marshmallow toasted around the rim. Like they had 5 different espresso martinis. They had the old fashioned one. They had the Mexican chocolate. They had a caramel nut, and then a salted caramel. And I could be mixing some of them up, but I know there's like 5 or 6. But
what was the spirit? Was it tequila or?
Yeah, the main spirit was tequila.
Okay.
And I had 2 drinks because I know they had like a coconut rum one that came in this bronze pineapple goblet, which was really awesome. And they had a pina colada popsicle in it. And it tasted like a carbonated pina colada. But the one that stole my heart was that doggone old fashioned. They had it smoky. They did the whole presentation, and you sipped it. You smelt the burning of it still, but still tasted that nice smooth whiskey on it. So that was that. For our entrees, we had a Thai snapper. They brought out the whole snapper fried, and under it was like those bao baskets where it's steamed. Yeah. And they had the lettuce wraps and the carrots, the pickles and carrots, and some oil, and that added the flavor to the actual Thai itself. One of the girls got bolognese pasta, which was really good, and we didn't get a couple items because the kitchen got backed up because those.
Wait, hold on. Say that again. She got what?
Bolognese pasta.
What the hell is that?
In a way, it's like a red sauce with a cut up penne. The way they had it presented. I think it was called the bolognese. Bolognese. I said that wrong.
I was like, hold on, bro. What are you talking about?
That's the Florida education. My bad.
I was like, man, hold on. What did I just hear? Okay, I got you.
Forgive me. But that was pretty good. You definitely tasted how they put the flavor in there, and the snapper was good. There was not bones unless you got to the head. Because I'm very traumatized from my youth of eating fish with bones in it. So I was a little worried about that.
Man, I grew up like a savage, man. I actually think like the cheek is some of the best flesh on a fish. It's so soft, so decadent. It's really an underrated portion of the fish that doesn't get talked about enough.
If there's a bone in it, I don't want to eat it. I had a traumatic experience as a kid because I would go to Tallahassee a lot, and every Friday we would do fish fries. So it was catfish, the grits, the bread, and I'm just like, oh, catfish. Okay, this looks good. Looks like fried chicken. But, fried chicken has a bone you eat around, and fish has tiny bones. Nobody elaborated this to me. So here I am eating up a thing of catfish with some grits, and I got this bone lodged in my throat, and I'm like, never again. It took me years to get back.
I feel like that was the number one rule that every adult just made sure they emphasized over and over and over and over again at every fish fry I ever grew up going to. Be careful, the bones. Be careful, the bones. Don't swallow the bones.
Yeah, everybody was so occupied talking, they forgot to elaborate. Hey, this is boned. And for a while, I would just eat grits and bread when I do
fish fries. Staying away.
Yeah. So now I'm sitting there like, yo, is that fish to bone? It is? All right, cool. Run it.
Yeah, I feel you. Yo, speaking of concepts, man, there's a really dope spot that I've been wanting to try. 2 spots that I've heard about that I want to check out in the St. Petersburg area. One is called Old Laundry, and it's essentially this speakeasy that just has a very discreet storefront. It looks as if you're going into a laundry room.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen that.
From what I've gathered, like the doorway looks like it's just a washing machine. And inside is a whole bar, lounge, club type vibe, kind of like really quaint, intimate, not too crazy, but looks like a good vibe. Looks like a good place to get a couple of pregame cocktails before you maybe step out to a dinner spot, or maybe it could be a good post dinner spot to catch a couple drinks, catch a
Mhm.
couple vibes and end cap like that, man. So I've been wanting to check that spot out, man. And another spot, man. Um, I'm probably gonna go there in a couple of weeks, and it's called Concrete Jungle. Now, the whole concept of the Concrete Jungle is Mexican, like Tulum vibe. So
Okay.
um, very rustic, almost Aztec vibes. You know what I mean? But from
Yeah.
what I've been told, it definitely gives you it gives you the experience as if you're in Tulum, Mexico. So looks really cool, man. I've heard that it's best that you get reservations before you go, but I want to check that spot out, man. If you haven't looked at it, check it out on Instagram, man. It's a vibe, man. It looks like a good time, man. So I'll be sure to report back once I do check it out. But
I haven't heard of that one, but
be a
that
good
one
one.
does sound interesting. That one sounds like it's a whole vibe. There is
Yeah.
a spot in Orlando that's similar to the laundry room that you mentioned. I think it's called Taco Cat, where it's a taco spot, but behind, I think it's the jukebox. It opens up to a club, but it's in Orlando, and it's a very similar vibe. But you can go there for tacos and then hop on over to the side where there's a whole club happening in the background.
Yeah, I feel like, man, personally for me, some of the best concepts have always been speakeasy. I love like that mystique about them. I love the fact that those that know, and if you don't know, you ain't going. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
feel like that just kind of creates this experience that to me somehow just elevates the food, it elevates the drinks. It just feels like there's a little more excitement going on in your blood, man, and it makes your senses heightened. You know what I mean? When you get to experience something that's a little more secretive like that, man, and exclusive, and not that many people know about.
yeah, that's very true. Reminds me of Shoe Hansen Repair downtown
Yeah, I
because
like that.
that's one where you actually need a password to get in
Right,
there,
right.
and they
Yeah,
actually keep it at a crowd control. So even if you are there and you do the password, you have to wait for a certain amount of people to leave before you or your group gets in. So they keep it at a controlled environment. It's really dim setting, and it sets a tone if you just want to get away from the hustle and bustle and you just want to sit down and chit chat or just relax. It's definitely a whole vibe. So I can get down with the speakeasy vibe too.
and they actually have some certified mixologists in there, man.
Yeah,
They're crafting up some really good signature cocktails.
yeah.
You may have to wait a good 15 minutes for your drink to be prepared, but yeah, it's worth every second that you have to wait for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That one's cool. And another spot that, I guess has its cult following. I like Tangeray's because it gives me that
Oh
little
yeah,
basement vibe because you actually got to go downstairs and it's they have a little band there. They always have different bands playing there. The only
always
thing I don't
live
like is the
music.
cigarette smell, but the live music, the basement type feel, it's so dope. It's something I can get down with.
It's funny. You remember my friends from Genetic Brewing? They
Yeah.
actually invited me to come to Tanqueray's last night, but I couldn't make it.
Oh man. And
Yeah.
you know what? I think Tangeray's had to survive, had to go through a process of trying to stay in business, and they did. And again, it's not everybody's type of crowd,
No,
but
no, of course not.
it definitely depends on what kind of vibe you're looking for. If you want to sit down, enjoy some live music and some locals just hitting the shit, bro, that's the place you go to.
Sturdy drinks, like the drinks are stiff. Like
Yeah.
they not playing the radio when it comes to mixing your spirits into your drink. And you got to get past the fact that you're gonna smell like an ashtray
Smell like
when
an
you leave.
ashtray. Yep.
Yeah, for
That's the
sure.
what. That's literally the place you go to end the night because you know you're going to go home with that smell. So you're like, nah,
Yeah.
I can't go nowhere after this, man. Because if you ain't,
Fellas,
if he,
bring the girl that you plan on taking home with you to that spot because you're not getting nobody after you leave. Trust me,
no,
guys.
and
So
shoot,
good.
even if you bring them there, you might not get lucky because they're gonna be like, you brought me here of all places.
Uh, Orlando has its fair share of ratchet and sleazy. So
Oh yeah. Let's
yeah,
not sleep on that, especially those after hour spots.
yeah, we're married on this podcast, so we'll
Yep.
let another podcast talk about that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we're going to jump on to the next segment here, and this is something more Carlton can talk about because he put me on to this, so it's more intriguing to me. But before we get into that, I want to shout out one of my homeboys, clothing brands he has based out of Jacksonville, Big Boy Movement, Black-owned business. Heavy set guys, slim guys, get down with the movement. Shout out to my boy Harold. All right.
Harold, where my
So,
shirt at, bro?
hey man, I'll get you one, man. I'll send you the Instagram. Bro, for real.
Yeah.
So I want you to tap in on this because you put me onto this topic coming up. So I want to
Yeah,
let you
man.
take this
I
over.
feel like in lieu of you know, not to go left or right when it comes to politics. But one thing that I found interesting and coming from the industry that I'm in, so for those of you who don't know, I do work in sports nutrition. So what I've found that a lot of my constituents and colleagues are most excited about when it comes to the election is this gentleman, RFK Jr. So he's been appointed to basically crack down on the FDA, which I, for one, do think that is a plus. If you look at, and I can go so many ways with this topic, man, but like one thing he wants to do is just essentially dismantle the FDA and some of the things that they've allowed to regulate into our diet and into our bodies ultimately. So, well, when it comes to red 40 food dyes, me and you have young children, man. These dyes have been directly linked to temper tantrums and ADHD and different type of mood like situations with kids, man. And it's in almost everything. Doritos, man. It's in any kind of red flavored candy, So the whole concept, man, that they're pushing behind that campaign is make America healthy again. Now, look, I'm not here to like talk politics in the sense of what you should vote for, but I think this is something that we all can agree is long overdue. If you look at some of the most common snacks in the U.S. and look at the same snack in the UK, the ingredient supplement facts is about this long in the UK, and it's about this long on the labels and packaging in the US, man. So me personally, man, I don't know if you've had any I personally can say that I've seen and witnessed my daughter when she's had something with red coloring in it and when she's not taking anything like that. And there's a drastic difference in her mood, her overall temperament. And so like, yeah, for me, for one, man, I would love to see a lot of these things be banned because they're literally creating a epidemic of illnesses in the U.S., man. So I'm glad to see it, man. I'm here for it. Hopefully that'll be at least one good thing that comes out of what this country has been moving towards as of late.
Okay. um, I definitely can agree. Being a father myself, I know something my wife and I do is we watch what we not only put into our bodies, but what our kids are eating. Um, we're not strangers to wanting to introduce them to new things, but we're also not those parents that just grab anything to give them and just say, "Hey, or eat this. Here you go. Call it a day." We definitely trust certain brands. We definitely do our research, and I'm definitely a document watcher. Whether it's an historical documentary, a food documentary. Um, I'm definitely watching the documentaries about eating healthy again, weight loss, strength training, all those things. I'm always into some kind of documentary about work improving ourselves as human beings. So when it comes into children and being FDA, like you mentioned, there are certain chemicals that are linked to certain traits. The biggest one is cancer.
Yeah.
A lot of foods are linked to cancer. And you see, I know the biggest documentary that scared a lot of people was What the Health. Have you seen that
Yeah,
on
I've seen
Netflix?
yeah.
Now, I remember when that came out, maybe back in 2016. I was working at a restaurant, and literally everybody that watched it was eating a salad for like 2 weeks when that came out. They didn't want to eat nothing but vegetables. And I worked at a Cuban restaurant, and everybody was eating salads for lunch. They're like, "Oh, I'm not eating this no more. I'm not eating that anymore." But then a couple of days after those 2 weeks, they're back eating their normal things. Now, you also mentioned something very, very true. And I don't remember where this took place at, but I found a video maybe a month ago that this American couple were in another country. And I think it had something to do with deli meats, where they were at the store and they didn't serve deli meats because of what goes into the meat after it's sliced. And it was very interesting because being in America, it's like, hey, you want to make a sandwich, get some sliced up meat and cheese, throw it in between some bread, get your condiments. There you go. You got a meal. And I wish I remembered where it was, but there was a video out there. I think it was a black couple too, but it was very interesting.
Man, and I mean, it's almost sickening when you think about it. It can literally just have you in your head if you really knew half the things that were going into the foods that we eat, especially the processed. Like, it seems like the processed food section has grown exponentially, like within our grocery stores, man. It's almost majority of what you have, man. And whole foods and natural sources of foods have been diminished. And, that's another thing. The FDA really hasn't operated under a gold standard of evidence-based science to evaluate, these ingredients. So it's crazy, man. Like, I work in sports nutrition, man. There's this concept. I won't name this brand, but there's this concept of this one particular ingredient. I can't even pronounce it, but it's in a very, very famous, notorious energy drink. And this ingredient is essentially the byproduct of the waste from sewage plants. And they shave this foam off the top, dehydrate it, grind it into this powder, and it's incorporated into an energy drink. And it goes by a name that's I'm not going to say the company because I have friends.
I know which one you're talking about. But
yeah,
I don't drink energy drinks anyway.
I do. Make sure this podcast is brought to you guys by OxyShred.
Shameless plug, but I believe that's who you work with. So so that's different.
Yeah, coming to the Orlando market real soon, man. Be on the lookout. If you train at a UFit gym, if you train at Crunch Fitness, we'll be in some of those really, really soon. So, yeah, man, I'm excited. Big things coming in the future.
If you get it into an amped, then I may try it out, an amped fitness, because that's what took over the nearest gym before.
You're the one in Altamont, right? Yeah, man. I've met with them before. I'll see what I can do. I'll work something out for you. I've talked with them. We'll put something together.
No problem. And something else you mentioned, the biggest thing is, of course, candy. I saw a video on Instagram where they crushed up an insect and they put it, and essentially it got grinded and powdered and put into nerds. And it's just, again, these are things you give your kids.
Man, I wouldn't put it past them because you got to look at the food industry as a business. So how can they stay the most profitable, cut the most corners with their cost of goods? So if they can feed us some bugs and sprinkle some sugar on it, and Americans are going to continue to fall for it, then we deserve it. You know what I mean? Like we're literally just mindlessly eating some of these things, man. And maybe it's older age. Obviously, like, people know me for burger consumption, so man, I am very, very cognizant of what I'm consuming outside of my epic cheat meals with the burger. So I want that to be advocated more in this industry. I feel like prioritizing our health is something that We definitely need to be mindful of and present and, what we're putting in our body and how our body's feeling. There's times where you'll see me go radio silent on Instagram or any platform just because, man, I've been a gluttonous pig and I gotta tighten up sometimes. So I hope to be more of an advocate of that balance in the future.
Something I have to tell people is my Instagram is not every single meal I eat. And a lot
Yeah,
of people say, "Oh man, you be eating good. You be eating good." And I'm thinking, or I say, "Yeah, I do, but that's what I show y'all. You should see the stuff I don't advertise." And every now and again, I'll share it in my story of what I be eating at home or what my wife and I cooked at home or what she cooked at home. She cooks more than I do, but it's because at the end of the day, you're marketing something, you're advertising something. So I mean, unless I'm a chef, then it's like I'm not gonna show you everything I'm cooking at the crib. I'm gonna show you what I got and talk about it. But
no
it's
doubt.
a big misconception and something I started doing as I actually started going to my gym and finally getting into the rhythm of that. Because now that I've been fasting and as of earlier this year, I lost over 30 pounds. So now it's getting active so my body can show more. Because some people have noticed, but I want to definitely start taking shape to get more of that look and get to more of that physique I'm looking at. Because I'm not too far from my goal weight. So
Nice,
I'm
man.
working on that. So that's a good way to talk about making myself healthy again.
Yeah. Yeah, man, and it's just finding that balance, man. I feel like once you fall in love with the process, you know what I mean, and you see those results, it becomes second nature, man. And I think that's the way I've been fortunate enough to consume what I do and not get, and not add on those extra pounds. But we'll save that conversation for the next episode because we're coming up into holiday season. It's a tough time of the year for a lot of people
Yeah. Oh
to eat
yeah.
a snack. So we'll save that convo. We'll give y'all some tips and things of that nature to help y'all combat those holiday pounds for sure.
Yeah, man. That's a good note, especially like you said, Thanksgiving's right around the corner. So with that note, y'all, we're gonna end this episode of the Between the Buns podcast. This is your boy Blue Eats. Thank y'all again for tuning in for episode 6. You got something, boss, before we take off?
I was gonna say you take over the outro, and I was like, oh, I don't get to say
Nah,
outro.
man. Say what you want, man.
Baloo, you be turning into a radio host, and I'm like, I just feel like the guest is like, oh, okay, my time is done. Yeah.
You know what? How about this? Next episode, I'm gonna let you kick it off and end it because
All
I
right,
feel
man.
like people are gonna be like, "Man, how come it's like your show?" Nah, it's ours. It's our thing.